That finger point means it's time to start the show. Welcome to This Week in Film, the weekly podcast where we get together, talk about the movies we've seen over the past 7 days, show each other our sexy no-ankle socks, and talk about the movies, like I just said. I'm Nick Fronto. Joining you as always is none of the regular people you're used to, but Lew is here.
Yes!
That's why we set the levels before the show. Lew, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Nick, it's good to be back.
It's been a few months or so.
Yeah,
maybe
since that one glorious evening where Dan and I took over the airwaves.
And you explained the entire plot of Dead Poets Society.
You even had to edit it out. I gave you too much.
Lots and lots.
I said there were 3 things and only 2 made the podcast. That's okay. I chose an 80-minute movie this time.
Lew, tell us what you saw this week.
I saw a movie that most people probably have ignored their whole life. And
Moving on to my movie.
Oh, man, I saw 1992's Brain Donors.
God.
Shut up.
This is the worst movie.
It's not. It might be some kind of Guinness Book of World Record for most jokes in a movie. Every line is a joke. There are no wasted dialogue. There are some wasted dialogue, but there's no. Listen, John Turturro is in this movie.
John Turturro's in a lot of movies.
Yeah, but at this time, he said, "What am I going to do to cool down from Miller's Crossing and Barton Fink? I'm going to do." This movie, Dennis Dugan, whatever.
Have you said the title yet?
Yeah, Brain Donors,
yeah.
1992.
Right, yeah.
Everybody's in their prime.
Oof.
So the director, Den didn't direct anything. The director, after this movie, only directed television for like 5 years. And then his first comeback was Happy Gilmore, where, as it turns out, he's now like Adam Sandler's director now.
Oh.
It went Happy Gilmore, Beverly Hills Ninja, and then straight on through to like Grown Ups 2. So
wow.
I guess this was enough with all his TV show acting, directing, and this gem to give him the old Adam Sandler pat in the back.
Well, what's your Adam Sandler's friend? You're in.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You get
it's employment for life.
You just asked Rob Schneider. So, Brain Donors.
Schneider.
Brain Donors is essentially a Three Stooges meets Marx Brothers a movie. It's literally a nice, clean 80 minutes long. The 3 main characters are John Turturro as Roland T. Flack Pfizer.
Jesus.
Mel Smith. Mel, who you will know as like he's the albino in Princess Bride. He's the British guy, short, stocky British guy, and he's been in tons of other stuff. But Princess Bride is his biggest role. And Bob Nelson, who at the time was a huge yes he was. He was a big deal comedian, stand up, and he was more of like a Carrot Top thing. He definitely did props and a lot of he juggled scarves. He juggled scarves.
A simpler time.
Oh, man. Did anything worked on HBO and Comedy Central at the time. He was so known for his, I guess I should call him handkerchief. He was so known for his handkerchief juggling that it's in the movie. And the movie is it's a take on the Marx Brothers, I think it's called Night at the Opera or whatever, one of their many movies, where John Turturro as Roland T. Flack Pfizer plays a like an injury lawyer, like he's, what do they call him, ambulance chaser or whatever.
Yeah.
So he's a guy who shows up at accident scenes and tries to become their lawyer to make some easy buck.
Right.
And so Lillian Oglethorpe, her husband has just passed away, and basically in his will he has stated that he wants his money to go to opening a ballet theater, a ballet company. Mm-hmm. So then they make a ballet company. But Roland really wants to own it because he knows how much money's in it. But Laszlo, the family attorney, really doesn't want to, he doesn't want to relinquish his role in the family as the attorney. So he gets the great Volare at the time. It's really hard to describe this movie. It's 80 minutes. Just watch it, and then you'll be
Don't watch it.
Yeah, there's no reason not to watch. Listen, folks. I saw this movie in '92. It was on HBO forever. I then made all my friends. I remember one time in a marching band trip to Myrtle Beach, I played it on the bus.
Oh,
It was a 50-50 hit. Listen, I
there were
laughed.
40 people on that bus that were furious.
I watched this again last night, and I laughed just as hard as I did when I showed it to you 8 years ago.
Something like that.
Yeah, whatever.
Oh, that was a tough day.
Listen, Brain Donors. It's a great trivia for you're like, oh, John Turturro didn't do everything that was awesome. I get it, yeah, but this was it's a great comedy. It really is. You don't have to get muddled down in plot or acting. It's all slapstick, Three Stooges comedy with line after line after line of nothing but crazy, goofy, just jokes, just jokes.
We watched this movie, like you said, a few years back, and it was painful. There were three of us, and it wasn't like it was just the two of us. Wasn't it Matt?
It was Matt,
and it was silence, and the silence was louder, and louder and louder than the movie. And we just kept looking at you.
Right, and the thing is, every time you'd look at me, I'm laughing, but not in that way where you're laughing loud enough so you want the other people to know that was funny. I'm laughing because genuinely I'm still laughing as if I had just seen it for the first time. So listen, maybe it's not...
I love the Three Stooges, and I love the Marx Brothers. I've seen Night at the Opera, and it's pretty good. I liked it. It's, it doesn't hold up to today's. But anyway, this movie did not make it to 1995 as far as timelessness.
It's still fine.
I guess you had to see, if you saw it when you were like 12, it was right in your wheelhouse. It's there forever. But
came out in 92. It was not released on a DVD till 2004 because I think me and three other guys said, why is it not on DVD? If you want to find it on DVD now, if you go on Amazon, you can find one for $32.99.
What?
Yeah, because it's like the only one.
Jesus.
Besides the one I have.
So you could sell that for $33.
But I would never have it again. Guys, Brain Donors will never let you down. It might, listen, maybe it's like a 33% success rate.
You've dropped from 100% to 50 to 33.
Well, no, you're right, but I was thinking it was a room of three people when I showed it with you, and I was the only one that liked it. But I've shown it to other friend. We quote it back and forth to each other still now. So I think if you showed it to a room full of 20 people, 10 would thank you at the end, with gusts down towards 7 people would high five you.
7%.
7 people.
Right. Oh, okay.
Coming in at that 30% rate.
Slapstick's a tough nut.
Right, and they put a clinic on about how to do it.
I'm trying to remember the movie. I tried to erase as much of it as I could, but that comic, Bob Nelson is just terrible. He is everything that is awful about early 90s comedy.
Right, but he's the one who got all the big gigs because he was the Jeff Dunham of the 90s. Because it's like what I don't know, half-wits laughed at. He could fill an arena because he was going to do the juggling handkerchief.
He doesn't have any lines in the movie, does he?
Yes, he does.
Doesn't he just stand there and make faces while doing magic? Doesn't he wear like a big brown trench coat the whole time?
The whole time. Because his whole hat. He wore all his clothes at the same time too. When the first scene is he wakes up out of bed and he's wearing one of those old classic 1920s nightgowns for a man. But he tears it off.
A dressing gown?
A dressing gown. And he tears it off to already have his clothes for the day on. And that gimmick will come back later. He just wears all his clothes on. They say something about where the line is, I don't have any luggage. I'm like, good, this all makes sense. Listen, that was not a good joke. They say behind every good man is a great woman. And thank God I have Lillian Oglethorpe because, quite frankly, I enjoy the shade. Voted most likely to go up a few dress sizes. The woman who would be a man, except her name is Lillian Oglethorpe. These are all these lines after just everything's a joke. You're gonna giggle. Why wouldn't you? It's just why deprive yourself of just 8? You've wasted 80 minutes playing Candy Crush. Watch Brain Donors instead.
Okay.
All right, then. What did you watch?
Well, I watched the movie from 1986, directed by Russell Mulcahy.
Oh, yeah, that was a good one. What's that one?
Mulcahy. Mulcahy,
Mulcahy, probably.
Mulcahy.
Hey.
starring Christopher Lambert, Sean Connery as a Spanish Egyptian. I saw Highlander
Rawr.
with the soundtrack by Queen.
Damn right you did.
God damn it, is this movie great
Yeah.
and awful at the same time.
Some would say that about Brain Donors, but this is a whole different genre.
This is a completely... Highlander is the story of Christopher Lambert.
Is it Lambert?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Probably he's
I feel
French.
Like, I feel like it's got a Lambert on it there.
Christopher Lampy.
they called him Lamb Chop for short.
Lambo. He plays a Scottishman named Connor MacLeod. Or as he likes to say it, I'm Connor MacLeod. Christopher Lambert
Is not Scottish.
is not Scottish. He's French. And according to IMDb, before this movie was made, did not speak English. And God does it show.
So it's English with a Scottish accent, but he barely knows English.
Right. And
Wait, I guess that would make sense.
he learned, like, the English that he speaks in this movie is kind of like when Jet Li or Jackie Chan speak English in a movie where they
It's phonetic.
They know their lines phonetically.
Yeah.
And so he's like, his lines are delivered so oddly. But before we get into that stuff, Highlander is the story of a man in the 1500s Scotland gets killed on the field of battle but doesn't die because he's an immortal. Sean Connery shows up to teach him all the rules about being an immortal. And then it's 1986, New York City. Time to fight the bad guy from Shawshank Redemption. The immortals in the movie, they fight each other with swords because the only way to kill another immortal is to remove his head from his shoulders. That's the only way that you can kill him.
A clean cut.
Behead them.
All right.
So from time like beyond past until 1986, at the time of the gathering, these guys are all just killing each other, but if they don't fight, they don't die. That's the plot of Highlander. It is. It takes place in the 80s, flashes back to the 1500s, flashes back to Nazi Germany.
Oh, okay.
Flashes back to 1786.
Oh, like little colonial stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, this is a movie I saw as a kid because it was always on some channel growing up. It was one of those.
Yeah.
It was like a Sunday afternoon right after the football season. It was always on one of those channels.
Yeah.
But I have not seen it probably in the last 25 years. So a lot of the movies at that time blend together.
Yeah.
Because I think of Beastmaster a lot when I think of Highlander for no reason.
It's the swords.
And yeah.
It's the giant. They use these giant swords.
Yeah.
Like it looks like a
They call them
Japanime video game.
Broadsword.
I don't think you had to bring ladies into it, but it's like a sword that's really fat. Hilarious joke. And but I think that's what it is. Because all those Schwarzenegger,
right, Conan,
they all have those giant, ridiculous swords.
and some kind of clothing made out of fur.
Yeah.
Yeah. The part I remember about it is just the Queen, because I was always
The Queen soundtrack is fantastic.
Right? Is that song? Waiting for the man, I'm the hero of the man. I'm forgetting all the words of that song.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. Like, I think right away.
I thought you were singing the words. I thought that was some of them.
Yeah, I was doing my, I just learned Scottish.
Again, according to the IMDb, the movie was made and completed, and they offered the soundtrack to a bunch of different bands, and then finally got around to offering it to Queen, and Queen loved it. And they wrote a bunch of songs for the various scenes in the movie, and some of the songs are perfect Queen songs, like the what's the one about dying too young?
Wait, are they all
Forever Young or something like that, or not the song Forever Young.
There's two of those, Alphaville or Rod Stewart.
yeah. But So anyway, Queen does a lot of great songs in the movie, but when you're watching it, you can't tell if they got the songs from Queen first and then made scenes around them,
okay.
or vice versa. And also the movie feels like it really wanted to be a Rocky movie because there's so many flashbacks, a couple montages.
Well, you got to have a montage. There's
including, in Rocky 3 where Rocky and Apollo are training on the beach.
Yeah, of course. We all know this.
Yes.
Immortalized by your Halloween costume a few years ago.
Check it out. It's perfect. I was Apollo Creed from Rocky 3 when they're training on the beach.
There was no question about it. When you walked in any bar that night, everybody said, hey, look, it's Apollo Creed.
Everyone knew immediately, and there was no questions about it.
There's not any chance people confused you as a guy outside of Studio 54 in the early 80s.
Speaking of Freddie Mercury.
Who wants to live forever?
That's it.
Yeah. Who wants to live forever?
Which is poignant because Freddie Mercury died not too long after. Didn't he die in like 1990?
1991.
He died in 1986.
He died in 1991.
Shortly after the movie came out.
Well, by the time everybody had seen the movie, he died.
Right. So,
yeah.
It's kind of poignant. It's only 5 years later, and I'm sure he was sick before that. So, my point will stand.
Well, I like what you were just saying about how you can't tell if the songs came first or the songs were just singing what they saw. But I like that the whole point of a Highlander is they're immortal. And the song that was the big hit was Who Wants to Live Forever?
Well,
it's almost like that was their first reaction to hearing, what's it about? It's a guy who lives forever. Who wants to live forever?
Forever, yeah. Well, that song plays during one of the better scenes in the movie where it's better in quotes because it's hilarious. But still well done. It's so strange, this movie, because it's at the same time terrible, but so compelling that you must watch it.
Yeah, that's why it was the perfect TBS Saturday or whatever was the show, the channel you were watching as growing up is the perfect. You were not turning it off.
So that song plays during a sequence where it's the olden Scottish times and Christopher Lambert.
Yeah,
I hate that.
It's where what is how you pronounce his name where he's from.
I've always called him Lambert. And so he's married to this Scottish girl, and Sean Connery, I'll get into him.
Right.
I'll get to him in just a moment.
Welcome to the rock.
He says you have to leave her because you're going to stay forever young. And she won't. And
right.
So the scene plays out in a montage, and at the end she's just an old lady, but it's the same actress in really bad old lady makeup, and she's just like, "Where are we? Tell me where we are." And then she just goes limp.
Wait,
dead.
Does he go back in time? It flashes back to him going to her where she's now aged. Okay, remember the movie Forever Young with Mel Gibson and Jamie Lee Curtis?
Yes.
A young Elijah Wood. You remember this?
I don't think I ever saw it.
Oh man,
he's in a time capsule or something, right? Yeah.
George Wendt plays a guy who's a scientist.
Norm.
Yeah, and Mel Gibson, his character, and I forget his name, is like a fighter pilot in World War II, whatever.
I think it's Ever.
Yep. And
the name's Ever Young.
It was a letter to his wife. Send this. Or on the envelope it said it's for, ever young. And anyway, so he volunteers to do this thing where they were going to freeze him, and just to see if the experiment would work for a little bit of time. Flash forward 40, 60, I don't forget, it was like 50 years. They forgot about him in a storage container and they let him out. Anyway, Mel Gibson, who has not aged from the time he went in, is now in present day, blah, blah, blah. He gets a cut in a fight. Anyway, he goes back. They take him back to where he used to live, and his girlfriend at the time is still alive, only in now times. And it's the same thing.
Right.
He catches up and he starts aging.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I've seen this before in the Mel Gibson classic Forever Young.
It's funny you should bring up the Mel Gibson classic comedy Forever Young, because
it's a drama.
Mel Gibson, along with everyone in Hollywood, was offered the lead in this movie. Everyone was offered the role of Christopher Lambert in this movie, and everyone turned it down. There's a list here of so many names, and I'm trying to get to the list.
Wait, now because I'm confused now. The character's name is Christopher Lambert, or that's the actor?
That's the actor.
Okay, so
Christopher Lambert.
you keep saying everybody was offered the role of Christopher Lambert.
We all could have been Christopher Lambert.
Do you know how many times Mel Gibson was asked to be Christopher Lambert?
Here are some of the people that were offered the role, or offered or considered. Considered seems pretty broad.
Sure.
That could just be.
Yeah,
But MacGyver, Kevin Costner, Nicolas Cage, which, how dare they rob us of that experience?
I can't die.
David Caruso, Michael Keaton, just everybody. Swayze, Travolta, Bruce Willis. Just everyone was offered it. Duran Duran was the other band that was offered the.
So, wait. When was the Bond film? When was?
It was the next year. It was the next year or later this year.
Oh, so Duran Duran said, "No, we already got this thing cooking."
Something like that, yeah. And the one of the
A View to a Kill.
Yes, exactly, because all the information I got for this movie came from the Internet Movie Database. It's an official website, and so anyway, Christopher Lambert is terrible. He's
they got down to the last choice of a guy who didn't know English,
right? And they hire him for the movie. Find out he doesn't speak a word of English.
It was a paper application.
Yeah, I guess, or something like that. Like, how do you not know that your lead actor? Did you never talk to him?
Yeah, was there no screen test?
I guess not. I guess they were so desperate to just begin production. But then Sean Connery, you have to get it right, in the role of Juan Sanchez Villalobos Ramirez, plays an Egyptian born over 2,000 years ago.
Of course.
Who then became a Spaniard, which is why his name becomes all that. In the trivia, it says Sean Connery had a voice coach that helped him perfect the Spanish accent you hear him use in the movie. Sean Connery sounds like Sean Connery. He sounds as Spanish as he does Russian in The Hunt for Red October.
Yeah, that voice coach made a ton of money to do
really
nothing. That's
did.
well done. It does. Wait. In Highlander terms, do you just like every 1,000 years you're alive, can you just like decide on a new nationality, like a country of origin? Like,
I don't know why Sean Connery is old in the movie.
When does your immortality start?
Exactly. I would think it would start like, because everybody else in the movie is about 35.
And Sean Connery
looks like he's already 60 years old.
Right. And has. Since right after his first stint as Bond, that whole run, he was like, yeah, I'm 60 now. Also,
fun fact, Sean Connery wore a hairpiece the entire time he was James Bond. That's not his hair.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's heartbreaking.
Did he? Now she's going to tell me it's a merkin down there.
I mean, in those scenes.
All right. Does at any point in this movie, does he say, I am the last one?
No, and no one says that.
Because it seems appropriate. He says it later in time.
So the villain of the movie is a man called the Kurgan, and not Merkin, Kurgan.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And he's played by Clancy Brown, who is most well known as the head guard from Shawshank Redemption.
Oh, yeah.
And also, he does a lot of voice work.
Oh, he's killing it.
You'd know him totally if you saw him.
Yeah.
Also, if you saw him in this movie. But this is one of his early roles, and he plays the bad guy in the movie. And it's a total 80s bad guy. This movie is very heavily influenced by the Terminator, the Rocky movies, and I think just like those Beastmaster movies.
And Hercules in New York.
Talking about. Yeah. The director of the movie, before this, he directed a lot of music videos. He directed the Who Sang Video Killed the Radio Star, the Buggles.
The Buggles.
The Buggers. And he directed that video and a few others. And
that's a nice little trivia then. He had the first video on MTV.
Yeah, I guess
Good for him.
Yeah, those royalties are really paying off.
You're killing him.
And it totally shows. And I don't like to question anybody because of their directing background, but you can totally tell this guy did music videos because
this movie
looks like a music video,
and it was a series of 3.5-minute scenes.
Exactly, you're exactly right.
Oh, okay.
It's exactly what the movie is. Every 3 to 4 minutes, it's like another movie has begun.
Oh.
And none of the scenes match as far as tone from the previous scenes. There's random bursts of humor in the climax of the movie when the Christopher Lambert and Clancy Brown are fighting each other. He just starts dropping one-liners out of nowhere, and then the whole scene is shot with this. I don't know if it's a dolly. I'm going to say it's a dolly because it doesn't seem... Anyway, that just keeps going left to right on an arc, and the director just keeps using the entire shot to the point...
We're just going to run with this.
Yeah, well, he starts on the left and goes all the way to the right, and then you could tell when it ran out of track, but they're still recording, and it just sits there.
Oh.
And you could tell it's influenced by... Return of the Jedi
and Apple's panoramic photo option.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's just a movie that is just copying other people's styles, trying to make it into something bigger. But as terrible as the movie is, god damn it, does it work?
Yeah, you're not going to turn it off. What's it, like an hour and a half long too? It's not.
No, it's 2. It's a solid 2.
Oh, it's a beefy 2. Okay, yeah,
yeah, and it starts to feel a little long towards the end because it gets stupid, but it's a solid movie. It's you can't turn it off. Everything in the movie sounds like they forgot to turn on the microphones for everything.
Oh, it's like it's picking up ambient mics, but not like the ones on.
No, it sounds like they did all of the sound in post. Like they just said, we'll just get it all later. Just shoot it and we'll do the sound later.
Well, clearly he had to do all his lines multiple times before because he can get down the line, like the English of it. There's no way they took what he was saying then.
The way he talks is so odd. And when you finally figure out, oh, he doesn't speak English, you go, oh, well, now it makes so much sense. Because he just delivers lines like, the guitar is on the floor.
That's a good French Scot right there.
Thank you. I've been practicing. But Highlander, definitely check it out. I haven't seen any of the sequels. And again, from IMDb, I learned that Sean Connery is in the sequel with Christopher Lambert. So I think I'm going to have to check that out.
Yeah,
because I know it's nowhere near as good as the first one, but...
Or Brain Donors. So you're going to have to check something out here.
Either way, it sounds awful. Well, that brings us to the next part of our show, where we would normally read the responses to Ray's random request or last week's Dan's dastardly question. And I'll be honest with everyone, I didn't have time to read them all. There were so many that I have not had time to look at them.
Where were you going to find the time?
We keep letting Ray's last question, what's your favorite sports movie, bleed out for the last month. And then Dan's question last week has really lit up the web waves.
The webscape.
Yeah. The World Wide Web is burning down.
You actually literally have to put it on fire to get more. You have to use fire to put out that fire. There's so much fire.
You got to back burn it. That's a word. And so we're going to get you those answers next week. Because Ray is very excited to hear what all the responses are. And I know Dan wants to hear too, but Dan's going to have to wait.
Dan's going to push it back a little bit.
Now, Lou.
Uh-oh, what?
Just to tide us over for those people who have already answered.
Sure.
Oh, so anyway, last week, or Ray's question from a month ago now is, what's your favorite sports movie? Dan's question was, I think, what movie did you get talked into seeing that you didn't want to see and ended up loving?
Oh, so for you, that's not Brain Donors.
Right. That's the opposite. So Dan's question was, what movie did people make you see that you were hesitant about and ended up loving? On the website, I wrote it much more eloquently.
Sure, you used all the right words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Lou.
Yeah.
To tide us over till next week.
Can't wait.
What is this week's Lew's lunatic conclusion?
Well, I didn't know I was going to have to present a conclusion. So, I will actually run with that opposite there. What is a movie?
Oh.
What is a movie that you insist, and not like to be like ironic like a hipster, like literally a movie you love and you've tried and tried, but like no one else likes. Like there's just a movie that you will live on an island where you are the only person that likes it.
Oh.
So you have a movie that you've like, as much as you've tried, no one nearly likes it as much as you have.
It's a good question.
Yeah. It's a good conclusion.
What a conclusion. I'd have to say for me, probably, well, I don't know, because everyone who sees it likes it, but you got to get them to watch it. But Dirty Work, the Norm Macdonald
Oh, yeah,
classic.
you have to really, yeah, exactly.
But we saw that in theaters, and me and my group of friends that were there were the only ones laughing in a theater.
It might have been the same. We lived miles and miles apart, so we were. But I remember, yes, that movie lived on forever. He's, oh man, there's a bunch of dead hookers in the cars. Yeah, and when Artie Lang pulls his ass out to moon the audience,
He was supposed to keep driving.
He's supposed to keep driving. Yeah, that movie's fantastic.
Movie line.
But yeah, the
Check
same.
out Dirty Work. Don't watch Brain Donors.
No, guys, that's actually a solid 3 hour. Like, think about like you dropped your wife, husband, significant other off somewhere, and they're going to do some shopping, but you had to drive. You have one car. Load Brain Donors and Dirty Work onto your phone and sit in your car and watch those two movies back to back.
Also, check out Doty Woke.
Doty Woke's going to kill you.
So great question. Great conclusion,
Yes.
Lou. That brings us to the next part of the show where we talk about plugs. But before we get to that, I want to say thank you to the people who are listening to us on the Podcast Radio Network. You can catch us here every week at every Wednesday night at 10:30, right after Let's Talk Flicks. And if you're tuning in, listening to us, and you want to catch some of our back catalog or just get to know the gang, you can find us on your favorite podcasting app. If you look us up and you can't find us, send us a message on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, or thisweekinfilmpodcast.com. Let us know, and that's also where you can go to answer our weekly question. Lou,
Yeah.
what do you got?
Oh, yeah, guys. I appear on another podcast, not just this choice ever stint I do here, but on the Elvis and podcast. Elvis and it's an improv podcast based on the stories and tales of Elvis Presley's life. Mm-hmm. And it is improv based, actually it's strongly improv after the opening monologue. And it is, it's really funny. And I would rattle off all the names, but what I'd rather you do is just go add it into your podcast feed. Elvis and.
You might have to search Elvis, and.
Oh, yes, definitely put the comma. Because then it'll be like.
And it's A-N-D is and.
And. Elvis and. It's a take on the improv. Yes, and. Elvis and. And then also you'll see that all the podcast names are Elvis and Guns. Elvis and he bought a monkey, so his name was Scatter. Anyway, it's very funny. We're about 4 or 5 episodes into our second season. It's very, very funny. It's very, very well done. The editing is glorious. It's a definite headphones podcast where it is, what do you say? It's in stereo sound, I guess. So you can
a lot of sound design.
Yeah, a lot of sound design is what I'm looking for. It's definitely a cool little 35, 40-minute experience for your heads. So yeah, it'd be great if you guys put us in the old feed.
Yeah, it's definitely a fun show. I really enjoyed listening to it. I really liked last month was Elvis and Cosby.
Oh yeah.
That killed me.
Believe it or not, Elvis, there was a time Elvis was too incapacitated from his pills to perform, and Colonel Tom Parker hired a very young and up-and-coming Bill Cosby to fill his slot in Las Vegas that weekend. And yeah, we had a little bit of fun with that one.
Yeah, it's a good episode. Okay, well, I want to throw out, because most weeks we don't have any plugs. If you have something you want us to plug, Ray gave me this idea a few weeks back when he plugged a couple things for people he knows.
Yeah.
If you've got something you want us to plug, send us a message.
Yeah.
We'll be happy to do it, as long as it's probably not illegal.
Right. We'll not plug anything. We'll not plug anything on the dark web for you, but we will plug anything on the up and up web.
We might do the plug.
Well, we'll do plugs to the dark web. Yeah.
So if you've got anything, or you have a small business or a large business, and you want some free advertising, shoot us a line. We'll be happy to fill some airtime with it. But Lou,
Nick,
guess that is the end of the reel.
Oh,
so we'll see you next week in film.
see you, Twiffers.
What?